Call the meeting of Halstead City Council to order. First thing, agenda changes, approval of agenda.
Mr. Mayor, we would just ask that the executive session for non-elected personnel will not be needed this evening.
So the entire executive session is
Just the one for non-elected personnel.
just the
Just
one.
number 2.
Yeah,
Okay,
attorney-client privilege will still be needed.
we still have one. Okay, and I would like to add an item for the council to discuss addressing our code enforcement contractor.
New business, under new business.
If that's where it would fit best, that would be great. We'll move on to the public forum. Is there anyone that would like to address the council? Okay, gonna be a short meeting. We'll close the public forum and move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, after reviewing the consent agenda, bills and payroll and all that good stuff, I would make a motion to approve it as submitted.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous, carries. And that drops us down to new business. PEC work order KDOT Technology Grant Project.
Yeah, so in your packet, you have the work order for the engineering work specifically to be done with PEC regarding the KDOT Innovative Technology Grant that the city received. That is the street sign and stormwater condition assessment, GIS inventory, and creation. And just one second, I will note that there are some costs that are specific to the equipment that the city will be obtaining that are not reflected in that work order because those pieces of equipment will be purchased by the city outright and owned by us going forward, and those costs will be about $8,000 for the GPS devices and then tablets and then the actual software for the ArcGIS and the user seats that will be needed for that. So the difference between the $67,250 of the grant that's referenced and then the $57,500 of the PEC contract is basically the equipment and the software package. So, and we will just buy those directly from a vendor, so.
Ethan, I believe there was a discussion at one point in time where PEC, this platform that they're going to develop, will also allow us to enhance this with other infrastructure items. So I just want to be clear on that. So we're going to get a product from them, but then we'll be able to just add to it for our own benefit, yeah?
Yeah, I say hopefully in the near future, we'll have another work order that's related to the utilities. Pat's been busy as his schedule's allowed, getting them some of the preliminary information they need to give us a good quote for that, and that would be the gas, the water, and the wastewater system,
Right, okay.
so.
And this may also work eventually with 811.
It would allow us to give maps, but it wouldn't directly interface.
Okay.
811's kind of their
Well, I
own.
understand that. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if there is no other discussion or questions, I would make a motion to approve work order 26-01 between PEC and the city of Halstead and authorize staff signatures to execute documents as required.
Have a second of that?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous and carries. Number 2, 2027 budget work scheduling, working schedule.
Yeah, just included with your packet. As you know, with the revenue neutral rate process, there's essentially two different budget calendars that the city can observe depending on whether we would plan to file notice of potential exceeding of the revenue neutral rate or not. So just kind of wanting to put that out for you all. Generally, it's been our recommendation that you plan on doing the R&R process, regardless of where that mill levy is going to be set, even if you thought you were going to set the mill at the R&R rate, just to comply as best as possible with state law and not run into the penalties. They did clean that up a little bit with recent legislation, so that it's not as intrusive for the city, I guess, to have to be responsible there if you're operating on good faith with that R&R rate. And then the valuation, obviously, that we operate off is estimated, and you get that final valuation in November. So if that is the one option that would require or would take you out of the R&R compliance, then it doesn't involve the whole refund process that previously it did. So not, I guess, as much of a pressing option. It'd still be our recommendation that we plan to at least file notice of the R&R, because it gives us a longer time frame to work with the budget. We get more actuals in from our current fiscal year to inform the budget process. If not, then you're observing that old process where you got to have the budget done basically by early August, and it you can see kind of the timeline difference there. So, and if we do the R&R process, we have done historically what the city has done, which is plan to hold both of those hearings on the same evening. But as you can see, this is just a working schedule. We could move those around to have them on separate evenings if you desire. So just kind of looking for any feedback you all have. I mean, we still aren't at the point where you have to formally decide on the R&R this evening or anything like that. Just wanted to put that in front of you all so you kind of see the timeline and know when we're asking for work sessions to be scheduled and why we need to get them scheduled, so.
I would like to address I hear a lot of times about adjusting and going, going over an amount or staying where we're at. And I think the big deal is we don't have to go over, or we can keep it pretty flat, which I intend to do. But the thing is, it gives us more leverage because, like you said, we don't know if we got one storm through here, that changes our budget look going into next year and things of that nature. So it just gives us a little extra time so we could absorb that and see where we have to be come the end of August or the end of September, instead of just having it all wrapped up by August, because that doesn't always work. And we know that it doesn't, so I think it gets misinterpreted a lot that if we're just naturally going to do it, and that's not the truth. It's just it just gives us a little flexibility on it. So that's the way I've always taken it and read it when I read through the way the interpretation of what it's for. So.
Yep.
And we always get some feedback, and I do, and I try to answer it when people ask me, but I just wanted to say in a meeting so people know. So,
No, I'm in favor of, I mean, it's worked out for us in the past and to go that revenue neutral rate also, so. I'm good with that. So there's no action on that?
Nope, just a
No action
discussion.
needed. And set a city council work session date.
Yeah, so along those lines, we need to continue working and going on our 2027 budget. So we are suggesting a work session either during the week of June 22nd or the week of June 29th. And that would probably be a work session more where we talk, about that revenue neutral rate process and where you all are thinking, so.
I am going to be camping on the 22nd, so I would prefer the 29th if we could avoid that.
I'm good for the 29th.
I'm good for the 29th.
29th it is then.
6? 6 o'clock,
Monday evening, a good evening for you all? I mean, it can
Sure.
be, okay.
yeah,
Because, yeah, we do have a council meeting that week on the 1st, so,
That's
yeah.
That's fine.
okay. Yeah, just a motion then, I think to set that would be appropriate.
Have a motion for that?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to establish a work session for June 29th at 6 PM.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous, carries. Okay. The item that I asked to be added, I've had an excellent suggestion by someone. And the suggestion was that we drop our current contract with the code enforcement contractor and take that money, and Ethan can inform me whether we can even do this, take that money that we spend a month on the code enforcement contractor and put that towards the cemetery.
I mean, they're both general fund expenses, so,
Not a problem then.
I mean, yeah, you can,
If we release one, we could spend on the other. Let's have some conversation on
Yeah,
that.
so do we have any input from citizens, how they're interacting with the code enforcement? And I mean, I'm not in touch with any of this. How's it going?
I have not, I mean, had direct contact from any citizens. I mean, pro or nay, I mean, with that, I guess I could turn it over to Julie. Her staff takes more of those calls on initially.
What is the fee per month? I hate to say that, but
2,000.
I know what the
1,000.
grand thing is, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's 12,000 a year.
yeah, that's what I thought. I just making sure.
I would say one positive that we hear from residents is when they call in to make a complaint, we have a link, thanks to professional code compliance, on our website. And people can go there and make a complaint against their neighbor or, whatever they want to do. And it's completely anonymous. You don't have to provide your information. And that is one thing that people have liked. Whereas, people calling up here to make a complaint, a lot of times they don't feel comfortable because, even though we can tell them it's anonymous, we know who they are, and they know we know who they are. So even though I'm not gonna tell Josh that, Jane Doe called up here and made a complaint against her neighbor, that person still may feel like it's not going to be anonymous. So I would say that is one pro to professional code compliance.
Would that be something that we could possibly set up on our webpage?
I don't know.
That could be filled out without a
We could take a look.
anonymous?
We could definitely take a look.
I can see where that's a big plus,
Yeah, it is. I mean,
being someone that's been through that,
yeah. Right?
and I was innocent.
Well, if we cancel code enforcement, then we're gonna have to go back to the police department doing it. And I would like to hear, maybe once every couple months at a council meeting, what kind of feedback we're getting. Maybe, it doesn't even have to be vocally, if you could just somehow, could be in the, somewhere, if we can just have an email, what kind of reaction we're getting with interaction with the police and the citizens rather than professional code enforcement. Because we need to track that.
I mean, I don't want to say anything bad about him because I don't know the company, and I don't mean to say that, but I've been sitting here on the council and I have heard he's never been here that I've seen. So
I remember when he gave his initial.
I know when he gave his
presentation.
initial, but I happened to be gone that meeting that was finalized, but I haven't seen him since, so.
So one of the successes that has happened here in the last maybe 48 hours, how much were you involved, Ethan, with getting the Townsend Inn property mowed?
Outside of, I mean, just making sure that it, Pro Code had, put that on their because, I mean, how it came, it was between reports, so it wasn't on the last month I had access to, but they were aware of it and made contact, and then I obviously took the phone call from the property owner when they called just to make sure, they wanted to double check dates, I guess, to be sure that their planned action was within the time frame. So, I mean, we answer those kind of questions, but largely, I mean, ProCode has essentially handled everything from the drafting to, I'm assuming they're getting more of those calls. But in this case, I know the property owner actually reached out to me and just said, hey, it says I have 10 days and this is the date my guy's gonna be out there, and that's like day 9. Is the city gonna mow it like right on day 11? And I said, no, you know, if we know you're taking action, then we've always worked with property owners. I mean, compliance is more the goal than
In punishment.
punishment, so.
I see it though, Gary, as a division between assets and liabilities. The cemetery is an asset, and you protect your assets. And I see, yeah,
We could
telling
easily,
somebody your grass is too tall or you got too many weeds is a liability. That's the way I see it.
we could, in my mind, we could easily get rid of $1,000 a month out there, sending the city help every month to take care of the cemetery. Keep it up.
Well, it appears we've been remiss in taking care of some of the property out there. I guess. I've never paid it that much, ever mind, until Pat and company were here last time and talked about it. But then I made several trips through there since, and I see exactly what they're talking about. I didn't see any faucets dripping, but and it was raining hard, that's really why I went in there. But the trees, yeah,
Yeah.
we need, and there's a lot of trees out there, guys,
Oh, yeah.
a lot of trees.
They're hanging really low.
And they need to be trimmed, and that's gonna be an ongoing, and tree trimming's probably not gonna be, come under the care of the people mowing, I wouldn't think.
No, that's gonna be a tree service
Extra.
of some sort.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't suppose we've heard from anybody about the cost of trimming things up.
I know what my yard cost me for 8 trees. I would imagine we're probably gonna be somewhere up around 30 to 40,000 out there. 'Cause I know what 8 trees cost me,
I know what 5 cost me.
so it's not gonna be a cheap thing.
Well, and I guess to just clarify on the maintenance standard out there, the city has put tens of thousands of dollars since 2024 in tree trimming and tree cleanup out there. It's not like trees have
Right.
not been touched for 2
Right.
years or 10 years. It's just, you know, with streets, we have a defined, you have a 14-foot window over the street. That's the standard. In cemeteries, I mean, until it was brought that apparently 8 foot is the desire, I can go, I mean, we can take pictures of 30 cemeteries around the state and you will see tree branches. I mean, this is I would not say that Halstead Cemetery's trees are in any worse condition or, you know, than other cemeteries that are within 10 minutes of our cemetery. I mean, there are some that need addressed, but some of those also get into, you know, like the evergreens. There's evergreens that are blocking stones, you know. If you start trimming evergreens, you're going to kill that portion of the tree. It's gonna, you're taking the green, you know, away. And judging from the placement of those might have been put in by the stone owners originally, and that wasn't allowed planning, in which case the agreement is always that's either the cemetery association or the stone owners are meant to take care of that vegetation. That, I mean, the city was not signing up to landscape plants. Yeah, I mean, that's why plantings are supposed to be approved by either the cemetery association or the city.
I don't have no doubt that, I know for a fact, I worked for the city long enough and been around it long enough to know that they do a lot of things out there. I don't think it's implying that. It just needs to be better. That's the impression I got, you know?
Well, I think
Better is all right, you know, not everything's always gonna be perfect, but better is okay.
I think Ethan's hit the nail on the head, that they did not have a definition
Sure.
of, and, as we toured out there, it just looked to me like someone needed to start in on the north end with, a limb saw that would reach 8 feet and trim everything that wasn't an evergreen, because
I know
it just
when
ruined them.
when we went out the week after the storm, it happened to be Memorial Day, and the group that I was out there with, you know, you have events like that, and it's ever changing. It's just like somebody running through the wall. You know, that's not the first time, and it won't be the last. So we just got to take it in stride a little bit and just try to do our best. I mean, that's all we can ask as a city. That's all we can do. You know, and if we can throw a little more money at it and help the cause, that's fine. You know, we can't always do that, but, you know, in this particular case, you know, I don't see anything wrong with it.
Yeah, we give Pat a clear definition of what we're wanting, and
Sure.
all he needs is the budget.
Yeah.
We're coming close to the year anniversary of signing up with the inspections, aren't we?
Yeah. July 1 would be we haven't had them for a full year, but that would be I guess, yeah, no, they started July 1.
Yeah.
Think about it, or at least August 1, so we'd be pretty close to a full year.
Well, what I'm thinking is here, is as we've had the code enforcement, I haven't heard too much about the citizens complaining about it. But I remember that when we had, this is just fact, when we've had the police department doing code enforcement, I was always hearing about, from the citizens. They felt very, how can I say? Like Big Brother was on them. I mean, even more so than a code enforcement guy does. So I heard more grievances about the police being code enforcement than I have from this code enforcement guy being code enforcement. And I think a relationship with our police department and our citizens is worth something.
I don't know. Code enforcement thing has never been, I wasn't a big fan of it. I wasn't here when it went through the first time. That's just me. I'm not a big fan of it, so if, in my opinion, I'd like to see it go and just go back to the way it was, and if it gets to be an issue, then we'll readdress the thing. But, at this time, you know, even if I got a printout every year, this is what we did, and I know we had a kind of a graph on it, but, you know, I can still drive around, there's a lot of yards that got stuff, and it's always gonna be that way, especially when the grass starts growing and the trees fall. So, you're always gonna have that, but, you know, write them a dang letter, and if they don't do it, then we go mow it in 10 days. I don't know what else to say. I don't know if that's the proper terminology or whether or not, so, you know. I know some people's not going to anyway, so, yeah.
Mr. Robinson? What is your sentiment on it?
Liabilities and assets. You know, we're responsible for streets, sidewalks, parks, and cemeteries. I'm not responsible for the height of your grass. You are.
Well, are you,
And it made people say, well, I've got people who talk to me about it, said, well, isn't that just a little bit overreach? I said, well, no, it's always been there. It's been basically performed by police officers. And I don't know if they were off-duty police officers or not. I mean, that might be an option to have off-duty police officers or off-duty firemen do those things for a stipend. I don't know if that's possible even, but
Josh, they're on duty when they were doing it, correct? Yeah, you just, from a legal point of view, you about have to be. So, I know in the fire code enforcement it is, so.
Could I make a comment?
Go right ahead. Always
I've
happy
lived
to
here
hear.
for a long time. And over the years, there's been a number of ways this has been handled. For a while, we had a code enforcement officer / dog catcher. That went away. That was probably the most disliked guy in town because he just aggravated somebody no matter what he did. But through the decades that I've lived here, I don't think we've ever had just simply a code enforcement officer. It was always something that was done as part of the PD, or in the instance where they had the one van that, and for a while Fred Brock did it, was just the dog catcher. He didn't do code enforcement. But for a while we had a code enforcement officer / dog catcher. Or animal control officer, I guess I should say, to be accurate.
And that was an actual
That was,
officer?
they had an actual officer, said code enforcement, animal control on the side of the van. They bent, I think, don't remember now who it was, bent the bumper on it, but they bent the bumper doing something. And we actually happened to have an extra bumper, so we donated the bumper to the cause. So I remember this always being an issue. But there's always been somebody that's not gonna be happy being told that they're not allowed to do something. And by and large, I know for a while when the police officers were doing it, just prior to having the code enforcement gentleman doing things, at least that was a police officer from here in town. And it was somebody that if you were having a problem, sometimes local people that live here kind of understand. If the one little old lady's got a pollinator garden, well, maybe you need to have her trim it back so that it's not obstructing traffic view at the corner, but she doesn't need to mow the entire yard down and take out all of her pollinator garden because it's over 12 inches tall. Because part of that's gardening and landscaping, and sometimes it's nice to have someone that has a local feel for things. I think Mr. Robinson is correct. There's liabilities and things we need to be paying for, and then there's things that we do. And sometimes you make budget decisions. And if this were me when I was running a company, I wouldn't be paying somebody $12,000 a year when I had expenses that needed to be taken care of for things I was obligated to do. And I just think that maybe there is a better use for that $12,000 a year in the city budget. And anytime you're talking thousands of dollars of city taxpayer dollars, it needs to be remembered that private sector taxpayers here in the city have to come up with those dollars to pay for that. So if there's a way of making their bill just a little smaller by budgeting but still taking care of obligations that we have, and he's right, those obligations, streets, water, sewer, gas, police, fire, EMS, parks, cemetery's part of it, and that sets right out there on Highway 50 for everybody to see, and says Halstead Cemetery right on it. So I just think that as you all are considering this, look back over the decades, we weren't paying $12,000, I don't think, ever, for just code enforcement. And it'd be interesting if there was a record somewhere that many years back, what it was costing when that one person was doing both code enforcement and animal control at the same time. Because now you've got PD doing animal control. And I will say, we miss good old Fred, because by golly, he knew which dogs belonged where and which ones were habitual problems and which ones just got out and needed to be taken home. So maybe we need to get back to having a local touch for some of that.
Thank you. Well, if I had a motion to cancel that contract, I would take that.
Mr. Mayor, I move we discontinue the contract with the code enforcement officer.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Unanimous, carries. Thank you. And that puts us into an executive session. You're all gonna disappear on me, aren't you?
I'm gonna go support
That's George, please.
endeavor that's supporting the watch party.
Thank you, George.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that the Halstead City Council recess into executive session to discuss ongoing contract negotiations, consultations with an attorney on matters that would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship, exception KSA 75-4319B2, and ask that in addition to the governing body, the following persons join the governing body in executive session: city manager, city attorney, and the open meeting and governing body to reconvene in the city council chambers at 7:45.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's move to the comfortable chairs. Calling the meeting back into order. No action taken, no action needed. Man. Governing body comments?
Who are you gonna start with?
Oh, I'm trying to get this over with. Of course, Charlie.
Well, saw an interesting sign the other day in Newton, and I don't propose putting them up very around much other than the park, particularly right now with how it's being used, but it said, the signs were, drive slowly, we love our kids. And I thought, that's a pretty clever sign, I could almost spend $14 to buy a bunch of those and at Walmart and stick them up around the park, just around the park. That's the only place. But I found that was pretty interesting. So outside of that, I'm glad to see what's happening with 6th Street. I know not everybody is, but I've heard some people say they were confused by. I'm not sure know how, but it's getting there. Chestnut, I guess it's on its way. It's still blocked off at 7th Street, so, yeah. So, kids are in action. Things are going pretty well. The tiny houses, I like that idea. And somebody at the grocery store the other day said, well, how about if you, down on 11th Street, if those were tiny houses? Takes a developer, and I don't think Halstead the city wants to get into the real estate business too badly. Some cities do, and I'll find out more about that tomorrow in McPherson, and I want to thank the council for permitting me the opportunity to go to that conference. So that's all I got.
Jim?
Just Charlie brought up 6th Street, just be aware of the changes. I did have one question, and I guess this is for Ethan. I know in the past that, especially during the winter time, that the county has serviced 6th Street, or they still continue to do that now that it's,
Yeah, we'll work with
okay.
Jim
That was
on that.
one question, I assuming that they would, but I just wanted to check and make sure. So, for snow removal and that kind of thing, so. I know the city does,
We only had 3 inches of snow.
Yeah.
but we had a bunch the year before, so,
Got off easy last year.
that's it.
I'd like to make a comment about the seminar we went to on the manufactured homes. Don't want anybody to get too excited about it because there's a lot of talk from the state. And if they cough up the money to put the streets and the sewer and the water and the gas lines out there on that ground, then you can probably get excited. But until we have the money pop up from somewhere, it's just an idea. George?
Yes, so I've been taking some time, a little bit of time off work and taking my dog for a walk quite a bit, and we are at 6th and Main quite often. And since it's been striped, we hang out on the corner. We haven't been asked to move by the police. And I indicate people, roll your window down. And I said, what do you think? And I'm more than anything, I'm getting, they like it. I've gotten a couple, I don't know if this will work, or it's going to take some getting used to, but markedly, I'm getting more people are liking it than frustrated. But it's new. It's going to take that learning curve. But yeah, I've been hanging out on the corner, just trying to visit with people and getting a lot of thumbs up. That's all I got.
All right, we'll move on to the city manager.
Well, as I'm sure many people are aware, the majority of the restriping on Sixth Street has taken place, and the raised crosswalk across Chestnut on the south side of Seventh Street has been poured and is curing. So hopefully Chestnut will be reopened, other than when they paint the crosswalk. It'll be closed again temporarily for that, but as soon as it's done curing, I believe they plan to open Chestnut back up. The last major construction component of the project overall is the 500 block of Santa Fe. It's the only sidewalk they haven't put in yet in that block. And then the finishing, you'll notice on the west end of Sixth Street, there already are some of the center turn arrows and things like that. So there will be bike icons put in the bike lanes and things like that. So it's not done being painted yet. And then there obviously is final grading and seeding. We haven't, done our final walkthrough or formally accepted the project or anything. So still a little work to be done before it's all done, but it's, I'd say the lion's share is now out the door and complete. There have been some rain delays overall, as I'm sure everyone's aware, but then the project is still on schedule to only be about 3 days behind the original schedule that was quoted to us. So they've kept pace pretty good. Staff have been busy working with the city's bond counsel and financial advisors on the final documents and paperwork related to the upcoming bond sale, which will take place at our next meeting. I did participate in our bond rating information call with Standard & Poor's yesterday, and we hopefully will get that determination early next week as far as the city's credit rating with S&P, or bond rating, excuse me. Negotiations continue with the needed drainage easement in the BNSF right-of-way. We still hope to be able to get these negotiations concluded and the project bid before the end of the year. We have already had some inquiries related to the city's Safe Streets for All RFQ, so I am hopeful that we will see multiple responses to that for the committee to evaluate come August. Staff also submitted our draft agreement to the Federal Highway Administration point of contact, and we are awaiting further communication from them as we turn to next steps on that grant agreement. Public Works is currently evaluating and looking at the needed repairs for a stormwater main collapse in the Fifth and Poplar area. This collapse has slowed the drainage for the stormwater that feeds into that main, and we are looking at having some video done of portions of the main that weren't exposed, just to make sure we're being proactive in the repairs that we do in order to avoid potential future issues, as that is a clay tile main. Along those lines, the city has experienced some pretty heavy rains recently, and in the volumes and timeframes that are well beyond what any of our stormwater system or culverts are engineered for. And in those instances, it's just a reminder, there's very little that can be done other than waiting for the water to just naturally drain. And then just a reminder, as I know Councilmember Torres frequently asks, that residents and businesses that do take care to make sure they're not doing things like blowing their grass clippings or yard debris into the street does actually help the stormwater system, because it keeps them from filling with debris that further slows down drainage. And so those actions when it's not raining are very helpful. With more outside activity, I also just want to note that if someone knows that, say, a ball or something has been rolled into or placed into a storm drain box, please contact City Hall, and Public Works will come out and get the object, because believe it or not, we have had backups that we have found those items in the stormwater boxes. So we realize accidents happen, but foreign objects in the stormwater drains don't usually work out well for drainage. So please just contact City Hall if something has occurred, and Pat and his team will be out there and help you get your item back. Finally, there are sediment control screens and socks in front of a lot of the storm drains along the safe routes to school improvements. And just people, I know they seem to be impeding the drainage, but that is a stormwater best management practice and an expectation on a KDOT project. And the purpose of those is actually to prevent large amounts of sediment because the seeding has not been done from going into the stormwater system. And so those do remain in place, and they do need to cover those storm drains until such time as the seeding and vegetation growth has sufficiently taken root, so that runoff and sediment runoff particularly is not a concern. And the final reports for the signs grant through the Department of Commerce have been submitted, and we're waiting on confirmation on the closeout of that grant. Just some reminders that annual pet registrations were due at the end of May, although we will still gladly register your pet so it's in compliance with the ordinance. And for those residents who have golf carts, that they too must have their registrations renewed on an annual basis. And then if you are doing any improvements or sort of building project on your property, please contact City Hall to confirm if you need a building permit or not. Just general rule is if it's going beyond purely cosmetic interior work or say just siding on the outside, it probably does need a building permit, and that includes things like fences or putting in a new storage unit, or it's not unit, but a storage shed. Citywide garage sales are this weekend, although a reminder that residents can have garage sales at any point in the year at their property, and there are no permits or any registrations that are required from the city to do that. Just the citywide is, I guess, what we put out annually to the groups that track that, just saying, hey, there might be more garage sales than normal. So anyone that's partaking, have fun, and please be aware traffic will probably be increased in the city this weekend because of that. City will also be sponsoring the annual Shred Day event on Saturday, June 13th. We do that in partnership with the Halstead Bank. And that, again, allows residents to come and safely and securely destroy any documents or paperwork that they might wish to. And we have still always held that on the second Saturday, even though we don't do citywide cleanup on that day anymore. So that is all I have, unless there are any other questions.
The block party on the 14th.
Oh, yes, the Housing Authority is having a block party that is open to the public on the 14th.
Financial.
Right, April and May are still working on reconciliation, although April has been soft closed. And then May has yet to be soft closed, so that's why you only have the April report in front of you this evening. And that's just, the month just ended. And you do, as has been the trend for the majority of the last fiscal year and this fiscal year, we do anticipate that the overall cash position of all funds will be unfavorable year over year at the end of May, as it is showing with April. And again, we don't anticipate that the general fund or the water fund will be the two main funds that show that significant variation from the previous year. And we've discussed those reasons with you of just overall lower revenues in the general fund and then the additional transfers from the water fund that we did at the end of last fiscal year. So overall cash reserves and balances in those are still a healthy amount, and we'll just continue to monitor those funds and discuss the larger trend implications as we continue to have conversations about the 2027 budget and beyond. Revenues in the general fund are right about at expectations as of the end of May. We're not doing quite as well as we'd like to compared to some of the previous years, but we're also not significantly lower or unfavorable to expectations. The expenditures in the general fund across all departments are trending about 5% lower currently, although we do expect to see an uptick in general fund expenses as we see more seasonal activity from the operations related to the golf course and then the pool. In the city's enterprise and utility funds, all the funds currently have revenues that are favorable to expenditures, which is the operational norm. We want those to hopefully be in month to month. And the only real item of note is with the gas fund, where we are holding off on scheduled transfers to make sure that the fund continues to be operationally healthy. Those budgeted transfers will be reevaluated on a quarterly basis, and we will allow them to go through if the financial conditions of the fund warrant. Capital and utility reserve fund balances continue to build or are holding steady. The primary funding for those funds, of course, are the transfers from departmental budgets. And beyond the noted transfers involving the gas fund, the rest of the budgeted transfers so far this year have been completed as built into the budget. Staff continue working on the reconciliation and final closeouts for April and May. I will note that depending on how council meetings fall with the switch to the first and third Wednesdays of the month as our new meeting dates, it just in some months, we will either have very preliminary financial information reported to you because things have not yet been finalized with the month just closing 1 or 2 days prior within our accounting system. And then as we work through the normal monthly reconciliation process, we still will present you monthly updates, but they might more normally occur during our second meeting going forward than the first, just depending again on how the dates of the month fall. So just to let you guys all know there, because I know generally we always have tried to do that at the first meeting of the month in the past. And then, of course, yeah, just some of it's working on staff time as far as the city clerk and the city treasurer and their staffing, so. And that is all I have regarding the financial report.
Thank you. Anyone have anything else? I'd take a motion to adjourn then.
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Let's get out of here.